Our journey begins not in the halls of power, but in the dusty archives, where truth often hides in plain sight. For centuries, a particular map, one of the earliest and most influential depictions of the American West, was held as sacrosanct. It was revered by presidents, referenced by diplomats, and taught in schools. It was the map that ostensibly proved Spain's claim to vast stretches of land that would eventually become California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and parts of Colorado, Wyoming, and New Mexico. This map, known as the Spanish Map of 1776, depicted a massive, empty region, strategically placing Spanish missions and forts just so to delineate their dominion. Its existence was a cornerstone of Spain's imperial power, a silent testament to centuries of exploration and conquest. But what if this map, this bedrock of historical understanding, was a lie? What if it was not a genuine artifact of 18th century exploration, but a cunning fabrication designed to manipulate the destiny of a young, burgeoning United States? The implications are staggering, and the truth, when it finally emerged, would shake the foundations of cartography, diplomacy, and the very narrative of American expansion. To understand the magnitude of this deception, we must first transport ourselves to the turbulent era following the American Revolution. The newly independent United States, though victorious, was a fragile experiment. Its western borders were ill-defined, its economy precarious, and its future uncertain. To the south and west lay the vast, unexplored territories claimed by Spain, a decaying but still formidable colonial power. To the north, the British still held sway in Canada, nursing grievances from their recent defeat. The nascent American Republic was caught between two giants, both eager to limit its growth and exploit its weaknesses. The defining challenge for the young United States was expansion. The concept of manifest destiny, the belief that America was divinely ordained to stretch from coast to coast, had yet to be fully articulated, but the impulse was deeply ingrained. Farmers, adventurers, and land speculators gazed westward with longing, seeing not untamed wilderness, but endless opportunity. However, claiming this land was easier said than done. Spain, clinging fiercely to its possessions, presented a formidable barrier. Diplomacy was the primary weapon in this geopolitical chess match. Treaties were negotiated, boundaries were disputed, and maps became crucial instruments of power. Every line, every name, every shaded region on a map could be worth millions of acres, defining the future wealth and influence of a nation. Enter the shadowy world of international espionage and cartographic warfare. While official envoys exchanged polite letters and formal pleasantries, another, more clandestine battle was raging. Information was currency, and disinformation a potent weapon. It was in this environment that the seeds of the Great Forgery were sown. The story truly begins with the elusive figure of Manuel Gayoso de Lemos, a Spanish governor of Natchez and later Louisiana, a man known for his charm, intelligence, and ruthlessness. Gayoso was a master manipulator, deeply invested in preserving Spain's hold on its American empire. He understood the power of perception, the psychological advantage of presenting an unassailable claim. And he knew that the burgeoning American desire for westward expansion was a direct threat to Spanish interests. Gayoso was aware of the Americans' thirst for land, and he saw a perfect opportunity to exploit their nascent cartographic understanding of the vast territories beyond the Mississippi. The Americans, for all their revolutionary zeal, were still largely ignorant of the true geography of the West. This informational asymmetry was Spain's greatest asset. It was during the late 1780s and early 1790s that the idea of the Spanish Map of 1776 began to take shape, though not as an authentic document. The year 1776 was strategically chosen. It predated American independence, lending an air of established authority to Spain's claims. The map was designed to be a definitive statement, a visual declaration that vast swaths of land, particularly the entire Pacific coastline down to Baja California, were unequivocally Spanish. The actual creation of this masterpiece of deception is shrouded in mystery, a testament to its successful concealment. It is believed that Gayoso, or someone acting under his direct command, commissioned a skilled cartographer. This cartographer, whose name is lost to history, was not merely drawing lines on paper. They were fabricating history itself. They would have meticulously studied existing legitimate Spanish maps, absorbing their style, their nomenclature, and their subtle inaccuracies, all to create a document that felt authentic. The key to the map's power lay in its selective omission and subtle distortion. While it accurately depicted known Spanish settlements in Texas and New Mexico, it strategically left the interior of California largely blank, save for a few vaguely placed missions and presidios. This blankness paradoxically reinforced Spanish sovereignty. It implied that the land was theirs to fill, theirs to explore, and theirs to control. More crucially, it extended Spanish claims far northward, well into what would later become Oregon and Washington, creating a massive, contiguous Spanish territory along the Pacific coast. The map's greatest innovation, and its most deceptive stroke, was its depiction of the Great Basin and the Rocky Mountains. Instead of showing the complex, varied topography, it presented a simplified, almost barren expanse, implying an impassable desert that logically belonged to the power already established on its periphery, Spain. This visual argument was devastatingly effective. Once completed, the Spanish map of 1776 was not widely circulated in Spain itself. That would have risked exposure. Instead, it was strategically leaked or presented to American officials and diplomats during critical negotiations regarding Western boundaries. The goal was not simply to assert a claim, but to establish a precedent, to implant this cartographic reality into the minds of American negotiators. The map made its way into the hands of American diplomats, who, lacking their own detailed surveys of the Far West, were in a vulnerable position. Faced with a document that appeared to be a genuine product of 18th-century Spanish exploration, they often accepted it at face value. Why would Spain, a proud imperial power, present a fraudulent map? The very audacity of the deception made it difficult to detect. The map began to influence American foreign policy significantly. During negotiations like those leading to Pinckney's Treaty, 1795, which established the boundaries between the U.S. and Spanish Florida and granted Americans navigation rights on the Mississippi, the ghost of this fraudulent map loomed large. While Pinckney's Treaty primarily dealt with eastern boundaries, the general cartographic understanding promoted by the Spanish map served to reinforce Spain's overall dominance in the West, implicitly limiting American ambitions. But the greatest impact of the Spanish map of 1776 was yet to come, and it would play a pivotal role in one of America's most transformative events, the Louisiana Purchase. By the early 1800s, Napoleon Bonaparte, now Emperor of France, had secretly reacquired Louisiana from Spain. This vast territory, stretching from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains, was a geopolitical prize. President Thomas Jefferson, deeply concerned about French control of New Orleans and the vital Mississippi River, dispatched James Monroe and Robert Livingston to Paris with instructions to purchase New Orleans and West Florida. What they encountered was astonishing. Napoleon, facing financial difficulties from his European wars and anticipating renewed conflict with Great Britain, offered to sell the entire Louisiana territory to the United States. It was an offer too good to refuse, a chance to double the size of the fledgling nation overnight. But how large was Louisiana? Its boundaries were notoriously vague. The original French claims had been expansive, but the precise limits had never been clearly defined. This ambiguity was a breeding ground for future disputes, and it was here that the Spanish map of 1776 made its most crucial, albeit indirect, appearance. While negotiating the Louisiana Purchase, French officials, eager to make the sale as attractive as possible, presented maps that leaned toward a more expansive interpretation of Louisiana's boundaries, often pushing them westward toward the Pacific. However, the American understanding of Spain's Western claims, heavily influenced by documents like the Spanish map of 1776, meant that even with the Louisiana Purchase, the vast territory of California and much of the Southwest remained, in their minds, firmly Spanish. The forged map, therefore, subtly but powerfully, constrained American ambition at a critical juncture. It reinforced the idea that Spain's claims to the Far West were ancient, legitimate, and unassailable. This perception would have profound consequences. For decades after the Louisiana Purchase, the United States continued to cast covetous eyes on the Spanish territories to its west. The Louisiana Purchase had whetted the American appetite, but the Spanish map and similar Spanish claims acted as a psychological barrier, suggesting a natural and historical limit to American westward reach. The stage was set for the eventual clash, the Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848. By this time, Mexico had gained independence from Spain, inheriting its claims to the vast territories of California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming. The United States, fueled by manifest destiny, was determined to acquire these lands. The war itself was brutal and swift, culminating in an American victory. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed in 1848, officially transferred these territories, known